I may have uncovered the secret behind the giant shadows in the Florian triangle, and while doing so, I found more interesting hints that led me to rather more vague assumptions. If you've always wondered what the huge things in the fog behind Füllerbach are, keep watching this video. I think we all have wondered what these giant beings are, and while some of us might have already forgotten about them, they always stayed in the back of my mind. In chapter 442, we see the Strolls thinking about what the mysterious signal of a barrel they found could have been, when Nami notices a changes in air pressure. She then proclaims that a huge storm is coming. I started looking at these things from a different angle, a more scientific perspective, if you will. The Florian Triangle is a big, extremely foggy region in the One Piece Sea where many ships and crews go missing. Okay, what do we work with here? We got lots of fog, and that on the ocean. So I was thinking, what is the reason for fog to develop on the sea? To give you a very short and easy version, it happens when warm, very humid air cools down above a cold surface. Many small drops get formed, and fog is the product of this. Alright, we got the fog covered for now. We also had a storm coming with lots of rain. This happens around low air pressure areas. As we saw, Nami notices a change in air pressure, and a few minutes later, they enter a huge storm. After they went through it, they were surrounded by thick fog. Now we know that there's something in the Florian Triangle that is responsible for changing the temperature of the surface, and by doing so, changing the air pressure, which leads to storm and heavy rainfalls. Something is cooling down the water in this area to create this thick fog, and the reason for it goes back to way before the Void Century. We all know that Oda loves to implement and intertwine elements of our real-world mythology into his story. He also uses Norse mythology a lot, and that made me think, what if the shadows that we saw were actually frost giants? Let me elaborate. From now on, it's gonna be a wild ride, and it might get a bit confusing, but stick with me and listen. In Norse mythology, there were three places called Niflheim, Muspelheim, and Ginnungagap. Niflheim was made of ice and Muspelheim out of fire. Both emanated out of the Ginnungagap, a big gaping abyss, or yawning void. And out of the mixing of Muspelheim's fire and Niflheim's ice, Ymir was born. Ymir was the first of the giants and got killed by the first gods, Odin, Ve, and Vili. From his flesh they made the earth, from his blood the sea, from his bones the rocks and mountains, from his hair the trees, from his eyebrows Midgard, his skull became the sky, and his brain the clouds. But he also had children, and underneath them were the Hrimtursen, which were frost giants. Remember the people of Skypiea pray to Earth? This literally meaning Earth, and being the name given to the world by the people of Skypiea. And what does it look like? The Earth made out of a giant? Rings a bell, eh? Considering this, and Oda's love for mythology, is it so far-fetched to assume that he implemented ice giants in his story? Actually no, we already saw some ice giants in One Piece. The Yeti Cool Brothers. They were huge. And where did we see them again? Yes, in Punk Hazard. And does it ring a bell? No? Let me help you. Oda loves mirroring his story. We saw this many occasions already. I don't think I need to list you all of them. There are plenty of videos that take care of that. But what am I referring to now? Punk Hazard? A place made of half fire and half ice, on which giants are created? That's right. Caesar Clown was trying to create giants on Punk Hazard. Coincidence? I don't think so. So, Punk Hazard is more or less a miniature version of creation theory of Norse mythology, and as we know, he always starts with a smaller version of something before he gets to the bigger version of it. What I am trying to say is, the world of One Piece once was either created in a similar process or had at least a similar event, and out of this event, the giant race was born, and with them, ice giants. I am claiming that the big shadows in the Florian Triangle are actually ice giants. They are very cold, and the reason why the water in this area is way colder than the air surrounding it, which leads to heavy fog formation. Some of you might argue that the water should be frozen then, but that's not true. The water does not freeze just because you throw an ice cube in your glass. Same goes for icebergs in the ocean. The water around them doesn't freeze, but it gets significantly colder. That is my theory, and I'm certain that the shadows in the Florian Triangle are frost giants. But as promised, that's not all, because something else came to my mind. Ores. Gecko Moria found ores in the land of ice. According to Chopper, he died due to frostbite, assumingly because he did not wear enough clothing and had a big injury on his right arm. Moria calls him the Continent Puller. But what if Moria was wrong? I always wondered how they could call Ores the Continent Puller. Sure, the guy was huge, but overall, he's a dwarf compared to Zenisha. So either Ores was tremendously strong, or Moria found the wrong guy. Also, it was never specified where the land of ice actually is. Now let's address the fact that a guy like Ores, who supposedly amassed countries and islands under his control with his band of villains, was too dumb to dress properly for Arctic climate? Come on, that sounds like a big stretch. What if Ores actually didn't go to the place called Land of Ice, but rather got frozen there and the land with it? We for sure know a guy who's capable of something like this, so why shouldn't have another user of the Hiei no Mi existed back then? Alright, so I'm proposing that Ores and the land around him got frozen forever for some reason. What could the reason be? What if Ores learned about his ancestors? Someone fed him the knowledge about his origins, and furthermore and more importantly, what was stolen from them? Marie Joas. As promised, it's getting a bit wild now, but stick with me. In chapter 906, we see Emu entering a big frozen vault. Emu is walking towards several alcoves, but what piqued my interest was that the alcove containing the big straw hat actually is lit. I never saw this addressed anywhere, but I did not particularly look for it either. But why is that alcove lit? Looking closer at it, the straw hat laying there is emanating light, even though it seems to be frozen. Heat cannot be the reason for the light. Something else is responsible for this. It must have some kind of powers. From now on, it's pure speculation. 900 years ago, the Void Century begins, and a great civilization is ruling the planet from one corner to the next. The ancient weapons are built, and the Iron Giant was constructed. Joy Boy makes a promise to raise the Noah for Fishman Island, but never is able to fulfill it. 800 years ago, after a great war, Shandora is destroyed. The Void Century ends. Zunisha commits a crime and is sentenced to walk the seas forever. The world government is formed and they forbid the research about anything that happened in the past 100 years. What happened? What is the crime that Zunisha committed? What if Zunisha was responsible for Joy Boy's death? It doesn't even have to be on purpose. What if Zunisha got tricked or forced? I say, Zunisha is the reason why the big straw hat lies in Marie Joas now. The thing is big, but not so big that it would fit on an ancient giant's head, as many people assume, unless it adapts in size to the head of the one who wears it. It all comes back to the giants. I say the giants will play a way bigger and important role in One Piece than any other race. What if Ores was looking for the straw hat that got stolen and hidden under Marie Joas? What if Ores learned about this and tried to look for his ancient ancestors to ask for aid to retrieve it? What if Emo learned about his plan and sentenced him to an icy death? What if the sword actually was the crown of the giant that ruled the world since way before, until the Void Century began? What if Ores got framed as a villain by the world government afterwards? And that's the reason why people remember him as such. What if Ores was actually a nice guy who wanted to stop the world government? What if The world before the Void Century was peacefully governed by several giant races under the king with the straw hat crown, and Emu tricked them into fighting each other until only a few survivors of other races aside, until only one race of giants was left, the Elbaf giants. From this point on, if any of this has any truth to it, we can speculate further for what happened and the reason behind it, but this video is already very long and I rather address further topics in another video.